Would you say that this was easier of a book to write, or was it a little harder?
It was harder, but it wasn't because of the truck. It was because of COVID and everything that happened with that. I mean, it was a longer process for me because parts supply was a more challenging thing, and it was for everybody. And having my kids at home all the time made it a challenge. And so, yeah, I think, but it was in terms of the work done. Cutting the bed down was more of a challenge because I hadn't done one of those before. Cutting the frame was a challenge. I hadn't done that before. And those were the things that, you had to figure out the proper way to do it and to teach yourself how to do it before you teach everybody else how to do it. And that I wanted to come at it from that standpoint because the people that are going to be doing this project are just like me. They're going to be learning how to do this too. And if I can do it, they can do it, right? And that was the basis of a lot of it. But yeah, I think in terms of the truck itself, it was more of a challenge. Yeah.
Well, and again, I think that almost goes back to what we talked about at the beginning was you were confident because you had already built your K10. You
Yep.
went through everything with the square body, and then you probably had some confidence, but you I like that you challenge yourself to go outside of that in that you're like, well, here, I'm going crazy on this. I mean, I'm
We're
gonna
going to do it
take
all.
a
Yeah.
flatbed, I'm gonna make it a short bed, I'm gonna convert it from C20 to C10. And that's a big thing. People don't realize that it's really not that much to do to
Yeah.
convert a C20 to a C10. I often laugh when somebody goes to tell me like, well, that's a C20 or a C30. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the same damn thing. It's really
Yeah.
not that much different. There, you can,
It's
it's literally Legos. It's all interchangeable.
right. Right. Yeah, it was the most challenging part for me with figuring out what I was going to do, taking it from a C20 to a C10 was locating aftermarket parts that I could be sure would work. For example, the frame. Everybody says the frame on a C20 is a little bit thicker than a C10, right? There's an awful lot of misinformation out there about that, or people just don't know the difference. And so I called up the people at Ride Tech because their C notch in the back slides over the frame. It's an actual C channel, which means if it's designed for a C10 and the frame on a C20 is thicker, is it going to fit? I didn't know. They couldn't tell me. They'd had customers that had done it before that said that they thought it was fine. But again, definitively, there just wasn't information out there that I could find that said, here is exactly what you need to know. Here is exactly what's different between this one and that one. And so that's kind of what I set out to do. I said, all right, well, if they don't know, if I can't figure this out, I'm just going to do it. We're going to see what happens. And it worked. Everything was fine. So it was stuff like that. I think that was the most challenging right out of the gate was just kind of figuring out the path forward and going for it.
So I think, and I had a 71 tow truck that was a C30, and the 30s are definitely bigger.
30s are
The
different. Yeah.
the one thing I would wonder on yours, I almost feel like because yours was just a 20 and it
Mm-hmm.
was a single rear wheel, that
Mm-hmm.
that makes a huge difference, is that's gonna be just a standard chassis. When you
Yep.
go to the 30, almost like with Yellowstone, my 73, they go from 8 inch to like 11 inch.
Yeah.
And they
Very different.
and they do that under the cab, and then they narrow it, and then it goes to 8. And so on yours, I believe on a 67, it's almost like a heavy half, even though it's a
Yeah.
C20.
Right.
Yeah, it obviously in not to skip ahead, but it worked perfect because
Yeah.
at the C notch, it's the same exact. And I don't think unless you looked at underneath your cab and measured it, I assume it's the same because I've had some different 3/4 tons, but for the most part, yeah, unless you're getting into that 1 ton where they
Mm-hmm.
really got bigger on the chassis, it's quite a bit bigger.
Yeah.
And I know on the square bodies as well, like on Yellowstone, we had to make a C notch just because it was so big back there compared to a normal half ton.
Well, what I found was that the 3/4 ton frames are in fact thicker. I took a caliper out to a wrecking yard to double check because I had mine. I knew what it was. But despite the fact that the steel was thicker, the measurements ended up working out just fine.
Cool.
So there you
Yeah.
go.